Morning. Sorry, evening. No, wait.
Yeah, what's that film? And it goes, "Good morning, good evening, and good night." The Truman
Yes,
Show.
Truman Show, yeah. I love
Right.
that. I do think that I am in some sort of Truman Show, though.
Yeah. Just get one cloud of rain following you about.
Oh, it's a negative way to look at it. Just meant because everyone pays me a lot of
Oh, I
attention.
see. Hello, and welcome back to episode 2.
Hi.
Hello. First and foremost, a massive thank you to everybody that has listened to our absolute nonsense rambling so far.
Yeah.
We've had so much feedback as well, and it's all been really, really good. And
No.
whether that is genuine feedback or just feedback because we said, please no negative feedback, it doesn't matter.
It's working. It's working. Everyone's been really kind, really, really sweet about it. And we've had lots of people following us and liking posts, and yeah, it means a lot to us because we are very nervous starting this, and we don't
tell the story.
I know. It's it's my turn. Hopefully, my audio is a little bit better and it's not too loud and booming. So
Yeah, I think we've sorted that, haven't we? We on listening back to the first podcast, I think you don't really realise the things that you say because you just don't really listen to yourself, do you? So
no.
One of the feedbacks that we had was that we should start a drinking game for every time I said the word I think by the first 2 minutes we would be out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's because it's something that I mentioned to you when we started it, and I said I feel okay about doing it. I'm excited about telling the stories and things like that. The only thing is I say a lot, and you said, "Oh, I didn't realise. I've never noticed you say that," And I said, "No, I'm very conscious of it, and so I'll really try not to." And then
I just did it.
I just did it again. And then now you're doing it, I'm doing it, and yeah, it's
we should make it a thing. Hashtag
Exactly, yeah. And have you noticed that I say that a lot?
Yeah, you do say that a lot, yeah.
I do,
So anyways, after all the rambling,
more rambling.
Episode 2. I've got no idea what this episode's going to be about. Kate's done all of the research, and I'm actually really, really excited to hear it. So over to you, Kate. Ready?
I am ready. So, set the scene. Snowflake, Arizona. Ever heard of it?
What, a place called Snowflake?
Yeah,
I've heard of Arizona, but not a place called Snowflake.
No, it's quite cute. And it's the story of Travis Walton.
I don't know it,
Yes. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you what kind of genre this is, what category it falls into, whether it's murder, whether it's a haunting, whether it's a UFO abduction. It'll unfold. So I'm interested to hear what you think. So, Snowflake, Arizona, 5th of November 1975. And it starts with 7 men who were employed to clear trees at the Sitgreaves National Forest. So the 7 men consisted of Mike Rogers, who was the crew boss, and he got together six guys that he knew would be able to get the job done. He wanted hard workers. So the 6 men, one, Travis Walton, he was 22 years old, and he was known to everyone as a bit of a rebel, bit of a risk taker. Then there was John Gullett, there was Kenny Peterson, who was known as Kenny, Steve Pierce, and Steve was the youngest. He was actually 17, although he lied about his age because you needed to be 18 to go up and work in the forest, clearing trees. They were using chainsaws, things like that. But he actually lied about his age. He was actually 17, and the only reason that he did that was because his mum really needed the money, which was really sweet.
And I feel like that's going to be really detrimental to him as well.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out to not be a great decision for him, but yeah. So the next guy was a guy called Dwayne Smith, and last of all was Alan Dallas, and Alan Dallas was known as the Black Sheep. He was a little bit quiet, a little bit kept himself to himself, and it was known to everyone that he really didn't get on with Travis. These weren't mates. These were guys that just wanted to earn money. Alan Dallas didn't get on with Travis to the point where he felled one of the trees one day and it very nearly landed on Travis. And there was a few words, and Travis sort of reportedly gave him a filthy look, and as if to say, watch it, mate.
Can you imagine if a tree almost fell on you and you just sort of looked around and like,
Exactly, yeah. He kind of looked round, and Alan was kind of standing there with his chainsaw, oops.
Smugly. Oops, my bad.
Oopsie.
Did that almost hit you?
Butterfingers. Butter chainsaw. Yeah, so so it was kind of known that they didn't get on very well, but the rest of the guys, I can't think which one it was, but one of them had literally just started that day. Steve Pearce was fairly sort of new to it as well. So anyway, so they were up in Sitgreaves National Forest. They were clearing trees. They'd got up there early morning and they worked all the way through until the sun started to go down. They started packing up, putting everything in the truck. There was Steve Pearce, the youngest. He was in charge of putting all the gear in the truck and, setting it all out, making sure they'd got everything, all their petrol cans, hadn't left anything. So by the time they packed up, it was dark. Everyone was exhausted. It was tiring work. So they all piled in the one truck, which was Mike's truck, the crew boss. So they all piled in the truck and started driving on the little dirt road through the forest on their way home. As they were driving through, they noticed a glow through the trees, and they said, in their words, it was not like a glow of a fire. It was a strange glow. So they had to go and look. So they remained in the truck, but started to drive through. When they drove to a clearing in the trees, they say that they saw a UFO. It was about 100 feet from. Look at your disapproving face.
You see my eye roll there.
You're like, oh. It was 100 feet from them, and it was approximately 15 feet off the ground. And I quote, they said it had lit panels and it was beautiful.
Yeah, have to break all the trees. I can imagine in a forest there probably wasn't a lot of room for a UFO to land.
No. But the whole point of the of them being there was that they'd been sending crews in there to clear big sections of the forest. So this is still right in the middle of the forest, but it's just where there's been a lot of trees that have been cleared. And they were going from one clearing to the next. Travis, being the rebel, decided to get out of the truck and walk towards it. So he gets out and he starts walking to it slowly. All the guys in the truck were overcome with absolute fear. So they started shouting, screaming at him, "Don't be stupid, get back in the truck, get back in the truck." And he just wouldn't listen. Steve Pearce, quote, "He looked back once and he didn't look scared. The UFO," end quote, "the UFO started getting louder and louder, and they said it sounded like it was building up to something, like it was getting more powerful and making this sort of bizarre engine type humming noise." Mike Rogers, quote, said, it seemed to suddenly come alive, like it was winding up to leave. Steve Pearce said, quote, "This greenish blue light came out and zapped Travis. I really thought he was dead."
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
I know. So annoying. They said it threw him back about 15 to 20 feet. And they said when he landed, it looked like he'd been disintegrated. They said it was a scene that they couldn't better describe, as it looked like he'd been incinerated. Everyone started screaming at Mike, "Go, go, 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 go. He's dead, he's dead, he's dead. Just go." So they slammed on the gas, drove off in a panic. Mike said that he really thought that they were going to have a car accident. He said, "I was driving all over the place. Everybody, the other guys were screaming at him, They thought it was following them, so they were going faster, go faster, go faster. Everyone was in a panic, screaming, shouting at each other, and in the end they stopped. And there was a lot of arguments about, we've got to go back, there's no point in going back, he's dead, I saw him, he's dead, we've got to go back, we have to go back, this, that and the other. So in the end, Mike said, listen guys, I'm going to go back. We've got to go back. We owe it to Travis. You wouldn't want to be left behind. We've got to go back and see what's happened. So, okay, they said, okay, fine. So they went back, and the UFO was gone and Travis was gone. There was no sign of anything. But they could clearly see where everything had been, where they'd been. They could see their tyre marks, where they'd sped off. They called and searched for him, but they couldn't find him, so they headed back to the truck. They were very upset. They were very sad. And they quote, we couldn't get over the fact that we'd had to leave him in the forest. They drove back to town, and there was much conversation on the way back. We have to call the police. Although the other side of the argument was, as no one's going to believe us. There is no way that anyone's going to believe us, particularly Sarah.
Especially if the UFO is now gone.
Well, exactly.
Guys, I promise there was one. I saw it.
So Mike was too upset. He was obviously the crew boss. He was just too upset to call. He couldn't bring himself to make the call. So one of the other guys said, look, we're going to have to phone the police, and the only thing we can do is just tell the truth. So the police arrived on scene, and it was Sheriff Marlin Gillespie and Ken Copeland. They arrived to meet them. Martin Gillespie said they were all in an absolute panic and everyone was talking at once. And both Sheriff Gillespie and Ken Copeland said, we were absolutely convinced that it was a hoax to cover up a crime, aka Travis's murder. So on Thursday, the 6th of November, the following day, police started a huge manhunt to find Travis. They went out with 60 men, all searching through, and in their words, they were looking for a body. They were convinced that this was a murder, and they had bumped Travis over the head and hidden his body in the woods. And
come up with a really realistic story.
Really obvious story to get past. So they were looking for the body of Travis. They had volunteers there. They had quite a lot of volunteers that were helping look, but they also had a group of about 5 volunteers that had Geiger counters. Do you know what a Geiger counter is?
It measures, is it sort of like energy or something?
It measures radiation. Yeah. Okay. So they were searching around and that, and Mike sort of said to one of the guys, you know, why are they using Geiger counters and that, you know, and he said, oh, it's just part of what we do. It helps, you know, it helps to see if there's any sort of radiation in the area, this and the other. So Mike said, can you check us? Can you check us for radiation? Because we were all here when this craft was here and it took Travis.
So do they normally take, just on normal missing persons, they take the Geiger counters, or is it only because they've said that there's a UFO that they've taken these?
Well, that is a good question, and I'm about to answer it.
Okay.
So Mike says, can you check us? Because we were here. So they check them, and he says, no sign of any radiation or anything. And Mike says, well, we've all showered and changed our clothes. So wait. So he runs over to his truck and he gets out a couple of their hard hats that they'd been wearing when they were felling the trees. So he brings those over and he says, these were here. These were 100 foot from the craft that we saw. Can you test them? So he goes, sure. So he turns his Geiger counter on, puts it near it, needle goes all the way up. And he says, yes, they're, you know, testing positive for radiation. So Mike says, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And he says, look, we're just going to go over and write down our findings, you know, make a note of the findings. So they go over, and Mike's sort of standing there waiting for him to come back. And he says to one of the sheriffs, he says, so the guys with the Geiger counter that are testing for radiation, why are they here? What are they looking for in that? And the sheriff says, I know absolutely nothing about people with Geiger counters. That's not something we do.
Oh,
Ah,
not
so
part of the
no,
search crew.
not part of the search crew. They just mingled in, and when they tested the radiation on the hard hats, they were like, fine, that's good enough information for us, and off they went. Very suspicious.
Do you think that there's like UFO hunters or something? They'd heard about this story and thought, "Oh, we'll
Possibly.
tag along and try and check it out."
Possibly, yeah. The next day, there were helicopters arrived, and they were circling the area where Travis had gone missing. The police said to Mike and his crew, quote, if you guys just tell us where his body is, we can all go home. So they were absolutely adamant that this is what had happened. So then that brings us to Saturday, November the 8th. Sheriff Gillespie got absolutely inundated with calls, questions. Everyone was obsessed with the fact that they'd heard this story of a UFO abduction. They only wanted to speak to Sheriff Gillespie, which did not put him in the best mood. So everyone was phoning him, is there a UFO? Is there something we need to be worried about? Is it true? Has Travis been taken by a UFO? Obviously, to all of which Sheriff Gillespie was more than happy to say, nope, it's absolutely not true. We are looking into a potential murder investigation. So the whole town thought that these guys had killed him. That was the general consensus. Everybody thought, they'd had some sort of disagreement, especially with Alan Dallas. Everyone was like, look, they don't get on. There's a chance that maybe they could have had a scuffle, and
he's tried to off him with a tree before. So
exactly, tried it before, he'll try it again. So so everyone thought that they'd killed him. The guys had to pretty much sort of hide out in their houses because they were getting abuse, and and you bear in mind, these guys are young guys. They're in their early 20s, and one of them was 17. Either way, if they've just killed someone and left him in the woods, which is traumatic and awful I would like to think for anyone, but especially like young guys in their early 20s, a 17-year-old boy that just wants to earn a bit of cash. He's either witnessed a murder
or
committed a murder, or he has actually seen a UFO and seen one of his work buddies get zapped up. So any way you look at it, you think, it must have been horrendous for all of them. So because everyone thought that they'd killed him, the police said, right, okay, we want you all to come in and we want you all to do a polygraph, because we need to know if you're lying. We need to know if there's a chance that you're lying, if any one of you is lying. But they all had the same story. They all had exactly the same story. They were all questioned separately. So the police said, right, okay, get the lie detector examiner in, and we'll find out. So they arrive at the courthouse in Snowflake for the polygraph test. When they arrive at the courthouse, they are swamped with media and people from the village, all at them, shouting at them, what happened? Did you commit the murder, of Travis Walton, blah, blah, blah. So the department had got in the top rated polygraph examiner. He was rated the top, or one of the top guys in the whole of Arizona, and his name is Mr. Gilson. I did have his first name, but I didn't quite understand it, so I just left it out. And I called him
Mr. Gilson is fine.
I called him Mr. Gilson. So all of the guys were very unhappy at the fact that they had to do a polygraph. They all thought that they were being set up, and they were all pretty convinced that they were going to go to prison for murder. So you've got Steve Pierce, who was the youngest, and they picked him first for the polygraph. And the reason that they chose him first is because they knew he was the youngest and they thought he would crack and confess. They spent about 2 hours on each person, so it was an all-day thing. They asked all of them the same questions. One of the questions was, are you telling the truth about seeing a UFO? I did have a look to see if I could find all of the questions that they asked them, but I just couldn't find it, mainly because there's been more polygraphs in recent years. So every time I looked for that, I found the more recent ones. But I do know that one of the questions was, are you telling the truth about seeing a UFO?
I can imagine they would all be along the same sort of lines.
Yeah.
Did you kill Travis?
Yes, yeah. Did you, I know though it was along the lines of, did you cause any harm to Travis? Did you witness anyone causing harm to Travis? Did you, were you telling the truth about seeing a UFO? All of the questions that you would hope they would ask, are you a murderer? Are you an alien? Mr. Gilson, we see, Gilson, wanted to get another opinion from an examiner. So he decided that he was done for the day and started to leave. Mike saw him leaving and legged it over and said, no, where are you going? Where are you going? Also, I should imagine, Alan Dallas that didn't get on with Travis.
Yeah.
He was very put out by the fact that he had to do a polygraph test, and he was aggressive and moody and kept shuffling around a lot and moving a lot and saying, this is ridiculous, this is stupid, why are you making me go through this? And his result came out as undetermined. And the polygraph examiner said, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not telling the truth, and it also doesn't mean that he is telling the truth. It just means that we couldn't get a secure reading because his temperament was so all over the place and he was moving. He kept shuffling and moving all the time. He was clearly very uncomfortable about having it done.
That kind of leads to another question as well, isn't it? It's like, why was he so uncomfortable? If you've genuinely seen
exactly.
that, you know that you're telling the truth, then I know a lot of people don't really believe in polygraphs. They're not particularly reliable and things, but if you're 100% certain you're telling the truth, then that's generally what comes across, isn't it? Because they kind of read your heart rate and things like that. So if you're lying, you're agitated, and that's when it comes out as
I don't know as though I don't I've seen a lot of cases sort of everywhere, including the whole Jeremy Kyle thing. Like I say, recently, it's not massively recent, but
I saw Jeremy Kyle.
I saw the documentary on it about the guy that took his own life because he claims that he went on and had a lie detector test that was false, and it ruined his relationship and that. And then unfortunately, he took his own life, and the whole show got cancelled because of it.
Gosh, I didn't know about that.
Oh, really? Maybe we should cover it.
Yeah, next time.
But yeah, so it's, and when you see them being questioned, the producers of the Jeremy Kyle show, they actually said, are you aware that polygraph exams are maybe sort of 40 to 60% accurate?
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, that is a massive jump from people saying they're 99.8% reliable, and it's not that at all, and you think
you can't use them in court either, can you? You can't use
a
polygraph because they're so unreliable.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, they were
pretty
agitated about it. Gilson's leaving. He's going to go and get a second opinion because he's obviously stressed and perplexed
by the
about the results. Mike stopped and he said, no, please, you can't tell us the results. And he said, well, I need to get them looked over and this, that and the other, and we'll come back to you. And he said, no, please, you've got to tell us. This is our life that you're talking about. And he's very begrudgingly, he says, well, Alan's test came back as incomplete. And Mike said, what about the rest of us? And Gilson said, begrudgingly, as far as I can see, you're all telling the truth. 5 out of the 6 men passed with no question, no exception. They passed with flying colours.
Yeah.
And a quote from Gilson said, it would not be possible for all of them to pass if any of them were lying.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Was he going to get another opinion because he couldn't believe that the results would be true?
Yeah. From his point of view, he was thinking they're sitting there saying that all of them saw a UFO and they saw old Travis get sucked up by the UFO in its beam of light. He obviously was a man with the Sarah brain, so he's thinking, well, clearly that's not true. So, I mean, he was grilling these guys for 2 hours each.
Probably trying to get a negative result.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Make some sense of it. These guys have obviously committed a murder, which is obviously what he believed. They must be lying. They must be. So why does it keep coming out that they're telling the truth? This is so. Yeah. So it was all a big mystery. Here's where the twist comes in.
Go on, I'm ready.
So 5
Travis
hours.
just walks down the street.
Exactly.
From his day trip.
5 hours later. So Travis had been missing for 5 days by this point. And we're talking snow, minus temperatures, very cold. Travis's brother-in-law is at home. His phone rings. Not his mobile. It's 1975. His phone rings and he hears a voice say, "It's me, Travis. They brought me back."
Oh my goodness.
So now I'm going to move on to an interview with Travis. So this information all comes from Travis himself. So this is his account of what happened.
Right.
He woke up and he was laying on the road. He could see a light overhead of him. And when he looked up into the sky to see where this light was coming from, it shot up into the sky and disappeared. He felt really, really weak, but he started running back towards town. And he says that knowing that this thing had left him, that it plonked him off in the road, he said that he felt the only strength he felt was because he suddenly realised that he was free. He realised where he was and he started heading into town. He found a phone box of which I have a picture of, and I'm going to put that, well, actually, I'm going to send it to you so that you can put it with our blurb on it. But it's a picture of the gas station where he got to. It was the first thing that he came to in town, and he called his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law went and picked him up, and he said he had no idea that he'd been gone for 5 days. He thought it was all one thing after another. He saw the UFO, blah blah blah, and I'll go into that part of it in a minute. But he had absolutely no idea that he'd been gone for 5 days. He thought, it had only just happened, and then he was on the road. Then he phoned his brother-in-law. Boom, done. Travis said, quote, "I was in a constant state of terror." His brother-in-law took him to Phoenix for an immediate examination by Dr. Howard Kendall. And the tests he did were, he did full blood work, he did chemical tests on him, he did a blood count, he did his blood proteins, he did trauma tests, and he did signs of exposure, because obviously if Travis had been out in the forest for 5 days, he would have signs of exposure because the temperatures were horrendous. And there's no
like frostbite and things like that.
yeah, just I'm not entirely sure of what all the signs of exposure would be, but I mean, I guess he would have some sort of temperature burn on his skin. He wasn't like bundled up ready for winter. He'd been working, so he had sort of boots, jeans,
hard hat.
Well, yeah, that didn't even help because that was in the truck. But yeah, had his lumberjack shirt on, I'm pretty sure. That's what lumberjacks do, isn't it?
They wear their lumberjack shirt, absolutely.
Exactly. I love a lumberjack shirt.
And a deer hat.
Yeah, I'm too fat to pull it off at the moment. Not the hat, obviously, because that looks great. You've seen it. But a lumberjack shirt, shirt, I put that on, I look like a picnic table.
One day.
I'll get there. Yeah, so he said the Dr. Howard, sorry, Dr. Howard Candle said he didn't have signs of exposure. He did have clear signs of trauma, and he also had a puncture mark on his arm that was consistent with like an injection. So it looked like a needle mark, and he said it was fresh as well. It wasn't something that was weeks or months old or anything like
From
that.
a
He said
previous
it was
blood test.
very clear that it was a recent test. Yeah. So meanwhile, Sheriff Gillespie, who was the original sheriff that appeared on the scene, he drove all the way to Phoenix to interview Travis, because obviously he'd been looking into Travis's murder investigation.
And here he pops.
And they were like, yeah, no, Travis is here. He's just having some tests done. And he was like, well, damn.
There
Okay,
blows my theory.
I need to go and have a look and see what's going on. So he said that Travis was confused and exhausted during the interview. He was very incoherent about some of the stuff, although he gave him a very clear story of what had happened. The interview took a long time because he said Travis was just exhausted and in a state of terror and exhaustion as well. So then we come out with the media. The media are all saying it's a hoax, they wanted attention, this, that, and the other. But this was not one of those towns. It wasn't a town where, and this is 1975. These are men that are going out, earning the money, bringing back the bacon. They're men. They're lumberjacks. They're to say, oh yeah, we saw a spaceship. Oh yeah, we saw a flying saucer and this, that, and the other. They just don't strike me as the type of people that want that kind of attention, to be honest. So, but the whole town, all the media were saying it was a hoax. They wanted the attention. They were fiercely ridiculed. And the guys took to hiding out in their house. They were absolutely mortified that this had happened. And the only reason that they brought it to the fore and they told the police was because they genuinely thought that Travis had been taken and hurt, and they were scared. But obviously the media gets hold of it, and Travis turns up and, hello. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what would be the reason for you doing that? You couldn't possibly be telling the truth, so it must be a hoax. Travis's brother protected him fiercely. The National Enquirer, which is known for weird and wonderful stories, I guess.
If they were a podcast in today's world, would they be called Perplexed?
I think that's accurate. Yes. Yes, something of the ridiculous. I think that should be our subtitle for the podcast.
Yeah.
So the National Enquirer came knocking on the door, on Travis's door, or Travis's brother's door, and said, if you give us an exclusive on the story, we'll offer to, or we'll fund further testing for you. Whatever you need to prove that it happened. They cover a lot of UFO sightings and abductions and things like that. So yeah, so they were all over it, and they said, yep. Travis said, yeah, I'll give you the story if you can pay for this testing to prove that, I'm telling the truth. So they sent Travis off to be hypnotized, to go under full hypnosis and let the truth come out. So when he arrived, there was loads and loads of media everywhere. They knew that that's why Travis was there. Travis, tell us about the aliens, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, he went through, and there was a group of hypnotists and psychiatrists, psychologists that were all ready to hypnotize him. And they did, and this is what he said happened. So he remembers walking over to the truck. He remembers something hitting him and knocking him back. And then he has complete blackout. The next thing he remembered is he said he woke up and he had severe pain, like nothing he's ever felt. He was laying on a table and there was a fixture above him, and he also had something laid on his chest. And he didn't know whether the severe pain was coming from this thing that was laying on his chest. He felt very drowsy. He thought that maybe he'd had an accident at work and the guys had taken him to the hospital and he didn't quite know what was happening. He became aware of people moving around him, and he was in a real dazed state. And he thought that maybe the people moving around him were doctors and this, that, and the other. And he thought, what happened at work? Why am I in a hospital? And then he very quickly came more coherent. And he said he felt absolute terror. Nothing like it. He's never felt anything like it before. He's never been so scared. And he said he saw, quote, strange beings around him. And he said they definitely were not human, which obviously grew his terror even more. They got closer to him and he said he struck out with his arm and the thing that was on his chest fell off onto the floor, and he rolled away from them off the table and kind of stood up and steadied himself. And he said there were 3 of them and they were around 4 foot.
There's a little Diddy Claire-sized aliens.
Exactly. So he was surrounded by Claires. 3 of them.
That's terrifying. I can even
yes.
You can understand.
Yes, that's much how I wake up, surrounded by one of them, tiny and terrifying. So he said they were around 4 foot, maybe less. And this is a direct quote from Travis. Quote, they looked unhuman, but intelligent and unemotional, end quote.
How do you look intelligent?
I don't know. I think he's going from maybe a vibe he was getting. Maybe he was picking up the intelligent vibes. But yeah, he said that's how they appeared to him. They started moving towards him. Travis puts his hand behind him and said that he found something that was cylindrical, like a pipe or a tube or something. And he started swinging at them. He was absolutely terrified. And they just turned and left the room. So Travis thought, okay, I need to get out there. It is time to chip. So he edged really carefully, really slowly to the doorway of the room. He looked out, he couldn't see them. So he thought, right, I'm out. So he goes down the corridor again, very tentatively, very quietly, slowly. And then he comes to another door. So he peeks in and it's an empty room with a chair in the middle.
Is it just kind of what it looks like? What all these rooms look like, what the doors look like? Because
he said that it was plain. He said it didn't look like, it still looked like a doorway that we would know as a doorway.
Like a door with a door handle? Or
Nope. He said it was just a doorway.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
No, nothing weird or no, very very normal for us. But so the corridor again, very plain. He goes down, he sees the next doorway, so he peeps in, and he said it was an empty room or an empty space, and it just had a chair, but the chair was facing away from him. So he remembers having that feeling of there's possibly one of those things in that chair. And he said as he walked into the room, it darkened. It suddenly got darker, and he was aware that, and what I've got visualized in my head, he said there was lots and lots of small lights that were all over this room. And I think it's kind of like he walked into a room that was like a sort of glass dome maybe, or had a big window on it or something, because he says it looked like you could see the stars. but nothing else. There was loads and loads and loads of these little lights everywhere. So he crept very, very carefully up to this chair when he was almost to the side of it. And then he could see that the chair was empty. So he was like, woof. Okay. He got to the chair. Yeah, it was empty. He found what he thought looked like a door, but there was no handle. There was no buttons. There was nothing anywhere around the walls. There was no consoles or panels or anything like that. He couldn't shut the door or find the door of the doorway that he just came in. So he went over, he noticed there were some controls on the chair. So he says that he sat in the chair and he started jabbing and pushing these buttons, but nothing happened. He found a small lever on the chair as well. And he said that he moved the lever just a little bit. And as he moved the lever, all the lights moved all together, like he was moving it. He was very aware suddenly that there was someone behind him. So he turned around and he saw a man standing in the doorway, and he looked like a human man. This guy looked human. He didn't look like one of the other beings that he'd seen. And he thought that maybe it was someone from the government, or he thought maybe even NASA. That had come to kind of, rescue him. He rushed up to him, and as soon as he got face to face with this guy, he realised that there was something really bizarre about the guy's eyes. He said, I can't tell you what it was, but there was just something, and I quote from Travis, quote, something off about his eyes, end quote. He asked him questions. Where are we? What's happening? Who are you? The man said absolutely nothing. He took Travis's arm and led him out of the room. He led him up some corridors, and then he took him into a small room. A ramp had opened up in front, and the man encouraged Travis to go down it. Travis could feel cool air now, so it was like he was taking him sort of back outside. Travis looked back to see that he had actually left this craft that he'd originally seen in the forest. So he obviously thought, whew, okay, well, that's good. He said there was big bright lights everywhere, and it made it really hard for him to see where it was. But when his eyes adjusted, it looked like they were in a large warehouse type building or an aircraft hangar. He said, and there were lots of crafts in there. And he said, quote, they were disc type crafts, the same as the one that he'd just left and the one that he saw in the woods. And he said there were lots of them in there. They went through some doors and hallways, and then they went into this room, and there were a couple of other people that were there, and they looked like they'd been waiting there for him. And when he looked at them, they also just had something really off about their eyes. He said, I can't pinpoint it, but it was definitely in their eyes. He said, you would think they were human until you looked at their eyes.
Just like vacant.
Don't know. I said, I think when I was reading his interview and that, it seemed like, I don't know, like, when you look at like goat's eyes and you think, yeah, their pupils are sort of rectangle, and
right.
It's just,
I've never noticed. I'm gonna have to look closer.
See, that's what I mean. You don't realise until you sort of look and you think, why are their eyes freaking me out a little bit? And then it's not until someone says it's because their pupils are rectangle that you think, huh?
They genuinely are rectangle.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I love me a goat.
I've noticed.
but yeah, their eyes are just a little bit creepy. But yeah, like Travis says, it's just something that's a little bit off when you look and you think, oh, I don't know.
Something's not right about that.
Something's not right. Something's goatee.
I've met some people like that.
What, goatee?
Just something's not right about that.
Yeah, she was nice, but she was goatee.
She had some goatee eyes.
Yes, exactly. So where was I? Goat eyes. Yes.
It was almost like they were in a hangar full of UFO crafts.
Mm.
Just a place that the UFOs get stored.
Yeah, just garage. So they've gone down these corridors, they've gone into this other space, and there's more people that look human, but, goat eyes. They start to kind of force him onto another table to lay down. Travis gets terrified again. His terror goes from probably still like 100 to, 1,000,000. He starts fighting, he starts kicking out, really freaking out, absolutely terrified. And one of them holds a plastic type mask over his face and then blackout. And that was the last thing he remembered until he woke up on the road.
So he's got no recollection of like anything that was done to him or anything.
No.
He just kind of woke up, went for a little wander, went back to sleep.
Yep, he woke up. There was these 3,
4 foot,
4 foot non-human. Yeah, obviously with the goat eyes. He starts getting fearful, lashes out. They leave because they probably thought, oh,
we've done everything we need to do now. He's obviously woken up.
Yeah, our weird being has scared him. Can't do anything about the goat eyes, but maybe we should go and get changed, slip into something a little more comfortable. So they obviously went off and did that. He wandered into the control chair, moved the craft around a little bit, and then they came back dressed as a human with goat eyes, led him out of the ship into the garage, down the corridor, met up with his mates who were also human goat eyes, and and then they thought, we're done, knock him out and we'll drop him off on the road.
So did anybody say anything about Travis? Did he have this expression? Did anybody say that about Travis when he came back? He
what, goat eyes?
Same. Yeah, he looks like he's got goat eyes. He wasn't the same after his abduction.
Well, that's a good question. And the answer is no, he didn't grow goat eyes. But after all this had happened, he did go and he met up with the original crew, and obviously they were like, oh, we nearly did time for murder. And he was like, well, I was surrounded by goat eyes and, got sucked up into the sky. So, who comes off worse? But yeah, he met up with the crew. They discussed goats and things. But the crew said he wasn't the same Travis. There's no doubt about it. Physically, yes, but he was a broken man. He knew what had happened to him. He told them what had happened, this, that, and the other. He went through the whole story of what happened, and every single one of them, even Alan Dallas, believed him. They said, listen, this is what happened from our side. You walked over, you glanced back at us and we were saying, get back in the car, and then this light hit you and then we freaked out. Mike had a massive amount of regret, and I watched a documentary on it. They were severely traumatized, really, really traumatized, and these are now, they were, early 20s in 1975. These are guys that are now in their sort of 70s.
Still
but these guys, they were in full floods tears. This is absolutely ruined their lives. Everyone in the aftermath of this, everyone thought it was a hoax. They suffered a massive amount of ridicule. Their families didn't believe them. They said that the crew had probably drugged Travis, and created this story for fame and money. But again, everyone was like, even if you drugged him, how could you have hidden him anywhere out there? Because they all knew the areas that had been checked.
Yeah.
There's no way that you could have remained and lived out there in 0 temperatures. The police and the 60-man rescue party or search party, they found every cigarette butt, every coffee cup, every plastic sandwich wrapper that was there. They found everything. If Travis had been hiding out there for 5 days, he would have either had signs of exposure, or he would be dead, or they would have found some kind of camp or hut or something,
somewhere that he can stay in,
somewhere that he could have, laid low and that. But they were all harassed so much that some of them left town. They were constantly called liars. Like I said, some of them, their families don't believe them. And I've got a quote from little Ken Peterson, and you've got to understand that when he's saying this, he was properly crying. He was absolutely coming from a place of trauma and fear. And he said, quote, "For weeks after this, I was like a little kid, afraid of the dark. I was afraid to look out the window. At 25 years old, being afraid that you're going to see a spaceship, that is something that I haven't got over, and I really wish I could." It's rough for him, if to be that afraid that if you leave your house, it's going to come back for you. And he said, "I always imagined that it was watching all of us. You've seen too much," kind of thing.
Yeah. It's almost, I suppose, like seeing a murder, being witness to that, isn't it? And then being so scared that they're going to come back for you.
Exactly. Yeah, we left a witness. So we'll go back and take them out with our goat eyes. So in 1993, do you remember Gilson?
I remember Gilson.
Gilson, the top examiner,
the polygraph man.
That's it. So we're going from 1975 all the way fast forward to 1993. So Mr. Gilson, same examiner, tested Travis, and he asked him the same questions. He asked him some further questions, this, that, and the other. And he said, quote, "Travis was not lying. It did happen as he said it did, exactly as he said it did." End quote. Gilson also, in 1993, tested Alan Dulles, who was, if you remember, the only guy that got inconclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And he passed the examination, and Gilson said he is telling the truth. To this day, police still think it was a hoax. They just cannot believe that Travis was sucked up by a UFO and taken off. And I will finish the story with a final quote from Travis himself. He says, quote, "I wish I had never gotten out of the truck and it had never happened. Those who doubt me will continue to doubt. People don't want to believe it. That is their problem. So I'm kind of left with that." Fin.
Goodness, what a story.
That is my story. And it is said, I couldn't title it because I didn't want you to
know who it was.
know what was happening or what the point of the story was before. But it's known as the most famous UFO abduction
story.
Yeah. And it's a real Marmite case. So you either do believe that he was taken by a UFO or you don't, and you think it's a hoax. So tell me everything.
So you obviously believe that that's what's happened. Travis was abducted by a UFO.
Well, I love Marmite. I'm not a hater of Marmite. I'm definitely a lover of Marmite. But I do believe that they're telling the truth, because I don't think it would be possible. And I mean, they just don't seem. I've seen a few documentaries on this, right. And it's got all of the guys that were there. They just don't seem like those kind of guys that want that kind of attention. They really, really don't. They're proper, rough lumberjack, eat meat for lunch and,
manly men.
Yeah, clean their face with dirt, and glass and
stuff. If they hadn't genuinely have seen this, they wouldn't have been so petrified and so scared.
Yeah. And why wouldn't it have come out by now? This is years ago, and it's in the mid 70s, and you think, why? Surely one of them would have cracked by now and said, Yeah, it was a hoax.
Yeah, lied.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, about the goat eyes.
So Travis, did he have any, like side effects? They said that he wasn't the same afterwards, but did he have any, did he, I don't know, lose his smell, lose his hearing, have any side effects from what was potentially done?
Not that I've heard. The only physical sign that he had was this puncture mark.
Yeah.
But he said other than that, he didn't have any other kind of like illnesses that came out of it or side effects or anything, as far as I know. If anybody knows any different, or if you're listening, Travis, are you listening? Are you there?
Or even the
Yeah,
guys that took him, if you're listening.
Oh my God, don't wish that on me. No. Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Would you
I
like
always think I do believe, but I want to believe. And
Right.
that's the thing. I really want to believe these things, but I'm also I do believe, but I haven't seen concrete proof. I don't think I've got enough faith in things. I think I've still got that
a little bit of skepticism.
Sarah part of my brain that goes, yeah.
But what about this?
But,
so I've got a lot of questions.
Yes, well, you've got a full-size Sarah brain, so
I've written down a lot of questions. I for some reason I had a feeling that you was going to do a UFO story because I know what you're like.
How dare you?
So I had a feeling that that's what this was going to be. I don't not believe that the guys genuinely believe that this is what's happened. They're all obviously really shaken up. And do you need to put your deer hat on?
I do need to put my hat on, and I need to do this.
You let your flaps down.
Okay. Indeed.
Yeah.
They're fuzzy.
So they are. It's a beautiful hat.
Thank you. I love my hat.
We'll have to take a picture and put it somewhere because it's such a great hat.
Stunning.
So I believe that all of the guys involved believe that they've witnessed this because they've all had these true polygraph results, and the polygraph doesn't measure whether something's true or not. It measures if you believe what you're saying. So it doesn't measure actually, yes, that did happen, or no, that didn't happen. It measures whether you believe that's what happened or not.
Yeah.
So I could tell a story that I think happened, and I'm absolutely sure it happened, but might not have happened, but the polygraph will come out true because I'm absolutely sure that happened.
Yeah. So how do you get to that then? How do you get to?
I haven't thought that far ahead.
Okay. Join us next week.
Into it a bit more, but my view is that I don't disbelieve in aliens. However, I believe that aliens are something incredibly different to what we think that they are. They're not little people.
Green men.
They're alien life forms, and that could be in the shape of a plant that's very different. That's alien if it's on a different planet.
I like Day of the Triffids though. Did you? I mean, you're too young to remember Day of the Triffids, but oh my God, it was terrifying. Great big plants that were just like attacking people and things like that. And I'm pretty sure that was an alien thing.
Yeah, I just think that if there are aliens out there with the technology to build a spacecraft and fly it billions of light years, which take billions of years to get here, just to pick up Karen from B&M. Why do they need to do that?
B&M is great. So would I travel 5 billion light years?
Probably come to a B&M.
Do they have these hats? I mean, if they do, I'm there.
Travel to get a hat like yours.
I know. I understand what you think, your way of process, but
I think something else could have happened.
I mean, do they have an appreciation that it's Karen at B&M, or do they just think
we'll never know?
There's one.
Why are they doing it all so sneakily? They're coming over here in their giant UFOs, putting it in the hang up with the rest of the UFO guys, and then taking Travis, who's a lumberjack, and then what are they doing to him? What are they looking for? Yes, he's got a puncture mark, but actually, if they're aliens with all of this technology and they can beam people up with light, what do they need a needle for? What are they doing?
I don't know, maybe
It'd be very different to ours, even the furniture that they had. That's why I was asking about the doors. So
yeah.
in their different planet, different universe, a
Mm.
door is something completely different. It's not going to be a door as we know a door, or a chair as we know a chair. So when people say, oh, they took me up on their aircraft and they had all this medical equipment, that would all be incredibly different. It's not going to be medical equipment as we know it.
Yeah, but I mean, this isn't just the one and only abduction, is it? There's been many sightings of UFOs. I mean, I'd be keen to just carry on with this because I've even read about a family that again were sort of living out in the middle of nowhere, deserty type place, and they saw something alien like in their house.
Well, it's like Science. Do you remember? Have you ever seen Science?
Yes. Yeah. Oh
That's
my
a
God, that
great
terrified me
film.
as well.
I
Yeah,
know,
it's a
I
great
don't
film.
believe it, but
But it's like that, how do we know? A lot of people say, I do believe in aliens, but I also think that they walk among us. How do we know that these things aren't, then they don't necessarily need to be advanced with everything over us. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they do look and they go, oh, look, they use like a little, what they call a hypodermic needle.
it's a great idea. Let
That's
me take
that's a
that back.
great idea. Yeah, that's a great
Well done.
idea. I'll have one of those.
A
Um,
Starbucks. What a great idea.
Starbucks.
And
Let's
drive
have one on every moon.
forward.
Exactly. So, I mean, I also think, well, it's like the spiritual side of it. I think, well, I do believe, but I don't believe that happens. And I do believe that there are aliens. I think it's too ignorant to think that it's just us. And,
Oh, that's exactly why I said I don't believe it's just us at all. I believe there
no.
are alien life forms out there. The universe is infinite, isn't it?
Mm.
That anything can happen. I just don't believe that they would need to bring their spacecrafts over to here and take Travis, and do his tests.
I
If
mean,
it got to a point where we would have the energy and the knowledge to get to another planet and find that there's a completely different life form, would we abduct them and bring them back and do some tests on them? And I'd like to think so.
it's human nature to kind of experiment on everything. We can't leave anything alone, can we? We have to do. So we don't know what their mentality is like, whether it's the same as they might see us as animals or whatever, and the way humans do, and humans, we can lift up a log or something, and there's a group of animals that
Yeah.
we didn't know existed or something, and it looks funny. I guarantee they're going to take one or all of them and they're going to do all sorts of experiments on them.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that, actually, because I hadn't thought of it in that respect, and that they might see us as animals. Because actually, when we're creating a new product, we would test it on animals. So it
Yeah.
could even be that that's what they're doing. They're testing things on us instead of maybe trying to learn things from us. They could be trying to just test.
Yeah.
Created something and want to test it on us. That could.
Yeah. I mean, humans by nature are absolute gits. Because it's I don't agree with animal testing. I think if you want to create a new lipstick and you want to know if you're going to put it on, your lips are going to fall off, test it. Test it on people. That rabbits aren't going to wear lipstick anyway. I'll end up getting angry.
That's a story for a different time.
Yeah, that's a story for prison.
Yeah. So that's
yeah.
my views, anyways. Is that I just think that there's so many questions, and the no outweighs the yes. I think that maybe something could potentially have happened in the forest with all of the guys.
What do you think the no's are?
I just don't believe it. It's just too far-fetched, I think. I know.
What are your rational reasons for thinking it's a hoax?
Because I don't believe that aliens would have come over here and taken Travis. So therefore I would look for an alternate reason as to why they all believe that's what happened. And it could be that, I don't know, they've eaten some mushrooms in the forest and they've all hallucinated something, just something. They could have all gotten high off the fumes of the chainsaw. Just something else that could explain why, because I do believe that they probably have, that they believe they've seen these things, and that's why they're all so scared.
It was suggested that Mike, Travis, and because Mike and Travis were friendly, like they were mates, they were buddies, which was why Mike took Travis on, because he said, I know him, he's a bit of a maverick and all that, but
he tends to go missing for 5 days at a time, but I'll take him on anyway.
he wanders off, mixes, what is that, men with goats, but yeah, so they were friends, but it was said that apparently they thought that maybe Mike, Travis, and either Travis's brother or his brother-in-law, I can't remember what they said, but they said that they thought they might have made a sort of out of wood and paper mache and that sort of thing, and made a craft that looks, and then hung it in the tree, because obviously it's Mike's gig, isn't it? So he's been to that site before.
He knows where the clearings are. And
exactly, yeah, he knows where it would work. He was driving as well, so he could have driven past where he knew that he'd hung this thing. But they asked the guys about that, and they said, what's your take on possibly this being a hoax? And they'd made this model of a craft and hung it up, and then maybe one of the guys had come back and picked Travis up and taken him somewhere, and do you know what I mean, like said hide out here for 5 days, and that sort of thing. But they asked the guys, and Steve Pierce, who was the youngest one, said there was absolutely no way that was just a model. He said, I saw it very clearly. It was smooth like glass. It was lit up. He said the sound was deafening that it was making. The lights were so super bright. There's just no way that they could have made that as a model. But if you said, okay, well, maybe Steve Pierce doesn't want to make himself look silly, maybe they did make a model. Maybe they made a really good model.
Yeah, I think as well, terror does things to the brain, in that if someone's gone, oh my God, there's a UFO there, and they've all gone, right, oh my God, there's a UFO, and they're all getting scared before they've really even seen it. Your brain, it doesn't process things the same. You think these things are happening the way that they're happening, but actually they're not. We've all had memories where we thought that's what happened, but actually it turns out probably wasn't that way that you remember it. You just remember it very differently to how it happened.
Mandela effect.
Is that what that's called?
That is what it's called, when you recall a false memory.
Yeah, so that's a genuine thing. So it could be that that they're remembering it falsely. They believe that that's what happened, but they're just remembering it wrong. But yeah, that's my thoughts anyways. It's a great story. It's one of those ones that is incredibly perplexing, and there's no right or wrong explanation. It either could have happened or it couldn't have happened, but if it didn't happen, then why they, what did happen? So we'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Do you genuinely believe a UFO came? Have you got any stories yourself of UFOs that are equally confusing and compelling? And we'd absolutely love to hear it.
It's definitely something that I'm intrigued in. I will definitely cover more of them.
There'll be more, absolutely.
Yeah, there'll definitely be more. But yeah, and also I think it would be a really cool thing to do at some point if on social media we offer you guys a poll, so that we can ask you a little bit about the kind of things that you want to hear, things that maybe you want to hear less of, maybe about
they're going to say me. Oh, let's hear less of Sarah.
Maybe you want to hear less about goats and cool, super cool hats like this one.
The best hat.
It's so nice. It's keeping my ears really warm. I'm not going to be able to take it off now. I might just have to live like this. I can't.
No, that's fine. It's a great look.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a cap.
But putting the poll up, we'll put a poll up, and then you can kind of decide on what stories you want to hear and things. And
because I'm keen to cover sort of UFOs. there's also a couple of murder cases that I really want to cover because it's just, it just blows my mind. And it would be great to get some feedback from everyone on what they think about that. But yeah, so we'll whack a poll up. Maybe it'll be something that we'll do a bit more regularly so that you guys have got more of a voice in what happens in the podcast, because that'd be good, because that saves us less planning.
But yeah, well, I really enjoyed your story. So if you've listened and you also really enjoyed the story, then just leave us some feedback on wherever you listen to your podcast. That would be great.
Yeah, we're pretty much everywhere now, aren't we? Apple Music and Amazon, Spotify. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer.
Was it audio books?
Audio something. Audible. Yes, we're on Audible. And the old Deezer.
That's it from us.
Got any ideas or anything you want to talk about? We did get a few emails after our first episode, so thank you so much, because that really brightened our day to get that, because it shows that people are starting to listen to our drivel.
But yeah, that's absolutely it from us. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Guys.
Stay safe.
See you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.